All right, welcome everybody. I am about 2 minutes behind, but that's okay. We're welcome to IAEI News Live. What I want to do now is I want to talk about. We're going to take a look at what happened over the last 2 weeks at second draft meetings in Los Angeles. We're just going to do a little review, talk about some of the key important changes and significant changes. NEC 2026 second draft meetings report, and it all starts now. All right, sports fans. So, man, I'll tell you, last 2 weeks were insane. I mean, they were crazy, absolutely crazy. So we are going to take a look. Hey, got back feeding. Oh man, what do we got? So we got Tom back feeding. I'm not sure what you mean, David. It's Brady from West by God, Virginia. Excellent. Thanks for joining in. All right, so I need to do a chat. I need to bring the chats out. So hold on. Embedded for Twitch. How do I don't want an overlay. I want to break it out. Greetings from Costa Rica. How do I break the chat out? I need to pull the chat out. I'm doing something a little bit different. It's okay. All right. Thank you, David. Chat overlay. Embedded. Copy. What if I do that? Control V and hit enter. There we go. I think I'm good. I think I've got the chat. All right. So let's talk. Nihad, good morning, sir. Hope you are well. Glad to. And we got Byron Kroll. We got Michael Hofkin. Michael Hofkin, it's the famous Tommy Short Pants. Oh my gosh, yes. We had a blast out there in. You should have been out in California. I'm here to tell you. What other link? I'm not sure what other link you're talking about, Nihad. I should be on. I should be on YouTube for IAEI. West by God, Virginia. Excellent. We got West Virginia in the house, YouTube studio. I just got to get over to IAEI, make sure that I'm on the right channel here. Yeah, I'm live. I don't know where. Okay. All right. I'm not sure what the other channel was. All right. So we got Brady. Wow. Brady, wondered if you've been to West Virginia and it's how you like it. My shorts, pants. What? You guys are crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right. Here we go. Now I got all right. I can close this one. All right. There we go. Boy, we got a little bit of everybody out there. Thanks for joining in. Let me get my stuff over here. There we go. Now I can see. Okay, we got Don Ganir in the house. We got David Williams, Jimmy Tyler. Brady from West Virginia. Greetings from Costa Rica. We got Costa Rica in the house. Iowa. Byron Kroll from Iowa. I was waiting the other link. So, good morning from Caperton Center in West by God, Virginia. Good morning. West Virginia is on the radar these days. All right, Caperton. So, Jimmy Tyler, it's Brady. Wondering if you've been to West Virginia on my short pants. All right, Tommy D. Tech Tuesday in the house. So, here's what I wanted to do. Now, remember where we're at in the code cycle. First draft happened in January. Second draft was right now. We just got done with the second draft meetings. So we've had the public comments. And in the public comment phase, after the public comment phase, code panels all met last 2 weeks. And we got done with all of our language. And we are waiting for NFPA to do the voodoo that they do so well. So, but that shouldn't stop us from talking about some of the big things that I know I saw and a few others have seen out there for the 2026. I would say I would love to start with 90.3. Big change on the horizon for 90.3. What did we do? Remember 90.3. Let me bring up TerraView. No, not Terra. I am going to bring up NFPA link. NFPA link. If you do not have NFPA link, you need to get NFPA link. Because I'll tell you what, a lot, very, very useful. 90.3 is code arrangement. So, Brand Butcher, it's your birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. So, happy birthday, brother. Okay, so remember what 90.3 said in the past. There's a nice little here it is. Boom. So remember, we have general requirements. Chapters 1 through 4 apply generally. And then you had 5, 6, and 7 can modify chapters 1 through 7, but then you'll notice there's an independence in chapter 8. So the independence in chapter 8 is pretty much going away. So the independence in chapter 8 is going away. That's the message that I would say that you should be mindful of. Now, let's take a look at what 90.3 might say. Remember, everything here is water. I don't speak on behalf of NFPA, on behalf of the code panel members, or IAEI. What comes out of here starts up there. So I'm just telling you what I saw and what my opinions are, and you know what opinions are. Everyone's got one. Nihad says, you had a scheduled live on YouTube. This is where I was waiting. I don't think it was the same link. Yeah, I scheduled it on IAEI, not for me, but on IAEI, and I should be on that one. Anyway, now you're making me think. I gotta check that one out. Let me go to Restream. Yeah, second draft. So there we go. I believe we're there. All right, I'm going to shut that down. Okay, so 90.3. Let's go back to this. I'm going to look at the second draft language. Now, what the second draft language says, and remember, this is all wash. This is all water. This code is divided into the introduction and 9 chapters as shown in 90.3. Chapters 1 through 4 apply generally. That's still a fact. 5 through 8, not 5 through 7, 5 through 8 can supplement or modify the requirements in chapters 1 through 8. That's a big deal. It's a big deal. Chapter 9 are your tables that are applicable as referenced. And then all of the informative annexes are not part of the requirements of the code. So why is that important? This is the first cycle that they have pulled chapter 8. Yummy fudge. Good to see you, buddy. They have pulled chapter 8 into the rest of the code. That's a big deal. It's a big deal. So now 1 through 8 can modify or supplement the requirements that are found in 1 through 8. They shifted some of the what do you call it? Chapter 7, they shifted some of the low voltage DC limited energy stuff down into Chapter 7. So we have a new article, 722, limited energy cables for power limited circuits, fault managed power circuits, and optical fiber circuits and communication circuits. So that's new. 726, obviously we have the class 4 fault managed power. The fault managed power stuff is what drove the need to pull things into chapters 1 through 8, to expand and pull chapter 8 into the rest of the book. Willie, happy birthday and yummy fudge. Glad you're here. Kerwin Marshall, Don Gannier, we still haven't fixed the issue with chapter 1 through 4 rule modifying another chapter 1 through 4 rule. You know what? And I think I know where you're talking about that, Don. That's like chapter 4. That's chapter 4 stuff in there. That's an interesting one. But no, you're right. I think that still needs to be looked at. It absolutely does. So another big change, 110.3. 110.3. Let's take a look at 110.3. So remember, 110.3b is the reference. Okay, first of all, 110.3 is the examination, identification, installation, use, and listing of equipment. So 110.3 is where we see examination. This is where we're looking for suitability. This is where, remember, the big change last cycle was cybersecurity was added in item 8. And we have an informational note. In 110.3b is where we say equipment that is listed, labeled, or both, or identified for a use shall be installed and used in accordance with any instructions included in the listing and labeling or identification. So over the last couple cycles, various individuals have been trying to get changes into this section to address when a manufacturer would put a label or something in their information that says something to the effect, do not put this on GFCI. So in the first draft, where's the first draft? In this, I got 2 instances of NFPA link open. Public inputs, yeah. So in the first draft, this section said, I'm going to maximize this, 110.3b. The installation and use instructions shall not reduce the requirements within this code. The second draft said, well, we probably came out of the chutes a little bit hard on that one. In the second draft, they softened that a little bit, but didn't change the intent. It says, such instructions shall result in an installation and use that complies with the requirements within this code. So, for example, if I had a product, and I've seen that, I'm using this as an example because it's hot and it's a hot topic right now. If I had a product that would use the equipment grounding conductor and would trip a GFCI, and I put in my instructions, do not place this on a GFCI protected circuit. But then we have a 210.8 that says it has to be on a GFCI protected circuit. My instructions have to result in an installation and use that complies with the requirements of the code. So this gives an inspector to say the opportunity to say, your instructions do not comply with the requirements of the code. That's the precedence. Yummy Fudge or Article 250. The single article modifies itself so often. You know what it's like, Yummy Fudge? It's like the guys on panel 5, they're in Article 250 going, they talk this way and then they talk that way and they conflict with each other. Somewhere in the same article. And I'll tell you another one, 250. Let's see what what's another hot topic in 250 is 250.122. Let's see what they did in 250.122. All right, 250.122. Where's it at? 250.68, 92. Let's see if they made. Oh, here we go. Getting close. 250.109, 112, 118. Oh, wow. They changed 122. Okay. Oh boy. They 122 got a lot of love. I gotta look through this one. What did they do? They Control C. Let me get it over to a document that I can actually work with, so I can see exactly what they did, because there's a lot of changes in 122. So we've got EGCs, equipment grounding conductors, copper, aluminum, or copper-clad aluminum equipment grounding conductors of the wire type cannot be smaller than what's in 250.122 unless otherwise permitted in 122A through I. A is not larger than the circuit conductors. Equipment grounding conductors shall not be required to be larger than the circuit conductors in the raceway, so we know that. B is other than wire type EGCs. And this is cable trays, raceways, or cable armors, sheaths used as equipment grounding conductors as provided shall comply with. Okay, so I think that's sectioned EGCs. What is a sectioned E? I gotta look at what does 250.122. 250. I'm gonna look in the latest edition of the 2023 code, because 2023 code says, oh man, I wish NFPA Link would take me there. So we got general. Oh, so there's no general requirements now. Is that right? They took out A. They have equipment grounding conductors, and so they just have parent text. There's no general section. They have parent text, copper aluminum or copper-clad aluminum. And then they have an A, not larger than conductors. I'm looking for the increased in size. So A now is not larger than circuit conductors. Equipment grounding conductors shall not be required to be larger than the circuit conductors. And in B, other than wire type EGCs. And then C is sectioned. Equipment grounding conductors shall be permitted to be sectioned within multi-conductor cables if the combined circular mill area complies with 250.122. All right, though, here's D. D is increased in size. See what they did there. If ungrounded conductors are increased in size for any reason other than as required in 310.15B or C, wire type equipment grounding conductors, if installed, shall be increased in size. They still have the exception. Equipment grounding conductors shall be permitted to be sized by a qualified person to provide an effective ground fault current path in accordance with 250.4A5 or 250.4B4. So that's still there. E is multiple circuits. And F is motor circuits. So they reorganized things a lot. They reorganized things a lot in here, but I don't know. I can't say that they've changed. Let me look at what the panel statement says. Here's what the panel statement says. The Section 251.22 and its subsections are revised for readability and to comply with the style manual for formatting. No technical changes occurred as a result of this revision. Okay, so that settled that one. They just reorganized. Holy cow, we got the single article modifies itself. Okay, Steve Froming. Opportunities are all around us, Steve. Don Gannier. The manufacturer's instructions to not use GFCI protection really just says, do not install in a location where the code requires GFCI protection. That's right. And I'm telling you what, it's getting harder and harder and harder to find those locations. In your work with NEC Article 250, what factors are most critical when knowing the minimum size for equipment grounding conductors, especially in relation to the overcurrent device ratings? Great question. So here's the thought process. In 250.4, what we want to do with the equipment grounding conductor is we want an effective ground fault current return path. 250.4, general requirements for grounding and bonding. In A5, A is grounded systems. 1 is electrical system grounding. 2 is grounding of electrical equipment. 3 is bonding of electrical equipment. 4 is bonding of electrically conductive materials and other equipment. And 5 is your effective ground fault current path. So what 5 is telling us is that we want a ground fault current to open the overcurrent protective device. It says that the electrical equipment and wiring and any other of the electrically conductive materials that are likely to become energized, we have to install them such that they create a low impedance circuit. And what this section requires is that low impedance circuit has to facilitate the operation of the overcurrent device or ground detector for impedance grounded systems. So we want to trip the overcurrent protective device. So if I have, for example, a 200 amp multi-case circuit breaker, I need the ground fault currents to be greater than that 200 amps to trip the overcurrent protective device. Now, what it says is electrical equipment other than conductive facilitate the operation of the overcurrent protective device. It doesn't say which overcurrent protective device. It says the overcurrent protective device. So what the smallest overcurrent device that's going to be upstream is going to be the device that's protecting either the branch circuit or the feeder, right? So what we want, Kerwin, Marshall, is we want the overcurrent device to open. That's the important part of the discussion. Don Gannier, some multi-conductor cables have the EGC broken up into 3 sections. That's, you know what, Don, that is interesting. I did not know that a multi-conductor cable can have the equipment grounding conductor broken into 3 sections. I don't know what we mean by that. Does that mean that it's one size for like 10 feet and then another size for 20 feet and then another size for the next so many feet? Is that what you mean by broken up into sections? That's what, in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. If I get a spool of 100 foot, that means that I could have a different conductor size every so many feet as an equipment grounding conductor. Is that what you mean? I don't know, Don. That when I hear broken up into sections, that's what I hear. Or do you mean 3 different conductors within the same sheath? I don't know. That's Willie Snyder. That's good because the manufacturer instructions say GFCI protection not required when hardwired. When hardwired. Well, that would violate the NEC too, which would be ungood. Yummy Fudge. I wonder if things like welders are allowed to reduce the conductor size. I don't think so, Yummy Fudge. Willie Snyder, that still just means not to install where the code requires. That's right. You would have to install, whether it's hardwired or cord and plug connected, manufacturer's instructions cannot say, do not put these on a GFCI protected circuit, because that would reduce the level of protection provided by the code. 250.4 is the one section that helped me wrap my head around the whole article. Yeah, Yummy Fudge, that is so true. 250.4 is a very important, and when you read through all of the different sections and the requirements in 250.4, it really helps you understand what we're trying to accomplish with the rest of this article. I would agree with you. Really highlights the objectives and helped me understand why so many of the prescriptive material seems to conflict with itself. Yep. Don Gannier, 3 smaller sections with the sum of the area of 3 sections equal to the size required by the code. I don't know what a section means, Don. I really don't. 3 smaller sections. 3 sections. The 3 smaller sections with the sum of the area, smaller sections. So I have 3 different size conductors, all in series. Is that what you're saying? I'm at a loss. I really don't. I'm sorry, Dawn. It could just be that my head is still packed with everything else. 3 separate equipment grounding conductors. Okay, so that's 3 separate equipment grounding conductors. I get it now. So 3 separate conductors, and they're not in series, they're in parallel with each other. I get it. How does NEC Article 250.6 mitigate the risks associated with objectionable current over ground conductors to ensure 250.6? Objectionable current, the grounding and bonding of electrical system circuit conductors, surge arresters, blah, 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 will prevent objectionable current. So what your question is, Kerwin, is how does NEC Article 250.6 mitigate the risks associated with objectionable current over grounding conductors to ensure electrical safety and system reliability? Well, what it says is you have to prevent objectionable current. So the question is, what is objectionable current? That's not a defined term to my knowledge, and we'll go check to see if that is. B is alterations to stop objectionable current. Mind you, nothing changed here for the 2026. Oh, it says currents not classified as objectionable currents. Currents resulting from abnormal conditions such as ground faults and from currents resulting from required. So here's my Kerwin, my message is, if you're designing products and you have an equipment grounding conductor, don't use it. We're not supposed to be putting current over the equipment grounding conductor for a lot of different reasons. If you disconnect that conductor, you don't want to draw an arc. If you have GFCIs on that circuit, you don't want objectionable currents. But that did not change in the 2026 cycle that I can see. All right. I get you, Dawn. But each are smaller than the size required for an equipment grounding conductor, and the areas of the 3 sum to the areas. Okay, I get you. So in my opinion, the way they put the text, 3 sections, that's not, they should have said 3 separate conductors. 3 separate equipment grounding conductors, not 3 sections. When I think of a section of a conductor, I'm thinking, the first 20 feet, next 20 feet, next 20 feet, all in series with each other. That's the way I read it. If they would have said 3 separate conductors of smaller diameter, such that the overall diameter of the 3 conductors are equal to or greater than the required diameter for the equipment grounding conductor, that makes clear sense. But 3 sections doesn't make sense. Anyway, that's just me. And now, I never said I was the sharpest spoon in the drawer. All right, so let's keep going. So let's go back to 110. So here's another big change. Here, we went to Article 250 real quick, but I'm going to go back to 110. Another big change is 110.16 is going to now require a permanent arc flash marking. So we have the labels that are required as of based on NFPA 70E. We also have, what they did not do. Well, this is not the Canadian Electrical Code, but there's a Canadian equivalent to 70E as well. We could reference the Canadian. We should have. Z4, is it Z462? I think it is. Canada Z46. I think it's 462. Yeah, Z462. So we should have put a reference in there to Z462. We have a reference to Z535 for product safety signs and labels. We have an NFPA 70E, but we forgot about Z462. Well, we'll make it happen. Next cycle. Right, Dawn? Next cycle. 2029. All right, so in other than dwelling units, it says a permanent arc flash marking shall be, is this the second draft? No, I think they changed that. That's the first draft. Let's look at the second draft. I know that didn't make sense for the first draft, for the second draft, because marking, it should say label. A permanent arc flash, it still says marking, shall be field or factory applied to service equipment and feeder supplied equipment. So there's no 1,000 amps in there. Feeder supplied equipment, such as switchboards, switchgear, enclosed panel boards, industrial control panels, meter socket enclosures, and motor control centers. And they added in the second draft that are likely to require examination, adjusting, servicing, or maintenance while energized. And it says the marking has to comply with 110.21b, and it has to be located so that it's visible, clearly visible to qualified persons. And then it wants the nominal system voltage, the arc flash boundary, the available incident energy or minimum required level of personnel protective equipment, and then the date. Now, the first three, you know what? Let's go take a look. Let's take a look at NFPA 70E. If we go to, see now, if you have NFPA link, you will have access directly to all of the NFPA documents. All right, so we need to go to our 110.30. Where's your labeling? Documentation. I believe it is in. There's your shock. There's your arc flash risk assessment. Okay, additional protective measures. I'm looking for the label. There it is, an H. So here's what 70E says. Nominal system voltage, and 110.16 says nominal system voltage. Number 2 is an arc flash boundary, and 110.16 says arc flash boundary. Number 3 is at least one of the following. So what 110.16 says is the available incident energy or minimum required level of personal protective equipment. And what 70E says is the available incident energy and the corresponding working distance, or the arc flash PPE category for the equipment, but not both. It has a minimum arc rating of clothing and a site at least one of the following. So what the code did was said we're going to pick A, the available incident energy and the corresponding working distance. Or, let's see, does it say that? Available incident energy or the minimum required level of personal protective equipment. So it says the available incident energy or the minimum required. Now 70E will pick up the rest of that, right? So 70E will have you put the working distance in. And then, or you could put the arc flash PPE category. So the 110.16 recognizes both of those options. And then the one thing that 110.16 puts on there that 70E does not require is the date the assessment was completed. Not the date that the label was applied, but the date that the assessment was completed. Why is that important? Because if systems change, you can change your incident energy. That's all information that is very important for the electrical worker. All right, but each are smaller to the size. Okay, yummy fudge. Welder section conductor size is, or at least was, 630.11. So let's look at 630. I'm going to look at chapter 6 and see if they changed anything in welders, because yummy fudge is interested in 630. Electric welders. I'm looking at the second draft. 630.11, ampacity of supply conductors. The only thing they didn't change anything there in the second draft. Let's look at the first draft. Yummy fudge. 630.11. No changes. So you're good to go. No changes in 630.11. All right, NEHAD. Oh, wait, perfect. CRA Z462. Thank you. How might future amendments to NEC Article 110.16 affect the implementation and visibility of arc flash hazard warning labels on electrical installations? Future amendments. Well, I can't tell you about any future amendments. I don't know what that would be. A future amendment could be don't do it. When I look at, here's my opinion on 110.16. Oh, here's what I think. Here is what I think. I can give you a ballpark on what you may see. Where's my second draft? Here's my second draft. I'll tell you, I'm going to make a prediction. I predict that what 110.16 is going to focus on next is when are you not required to place an arc flash label. I can give you one example. Yummy fudge, or no, Kerwin Marshall. I'll give you one example. IEEE 1584. Let me just call that up. Let me bring up IEEE 1584. IEEE 1584 is what the industry uses primarily. It's a very popular document to calculate incident energy. So if you go to IEEE 1584 to the 2018 edition, and I'm going to put this up here, there is language in here that says, and now you have to understand the scope of 1584. What the model for, geez, oh man. I gotta zoom back out again. How do I do this? How do I zoom out? Where's my zoom? Zoom. All right, here we go. I just want to scroll to here. Right there. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? and I zoom in more. I zoomed in too far. Here we go. Model application overview. Here we go. You ready for this? Here's what 1584, IEEE 1584 says. Sustainable arcs are possible, but less likely in three-phase systems operating at 240 volts nominal or less with an available short circuit current less than 2,000 amps. In my opinion, I would look out for an exception in the future that says something along those lines. Exception. The requirements of 110.16 shall not apply for systems 240 volts nominal or less where an available short circuit current is less than 2,000 amps. That's my prediction. I think that will come next year. Now, somebody could say, hey, I want to do that as a TIA. But you'd have to demonstrate an emergency nature. I think that would be a reasonable and articulable exception that everybody could understand and weigh, because we have marking requirements in 408 for all of that equipment and in other articles for the marking of an available fault current. And if you're going to do an arc flash label anyway, you're going to have to calculate the available fault current. And what I would do, oh man, we're gonna write code. You ready? Oh man, we're gonna write this. Let's do this. We're gonna have some fun. Let's bring up Word. File, new. File, new. Control V, and let's go grab the language in the second draft for 110.16. So here is what, Control C, here is what I would propose. All right, you ready for this? You ready for this? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get rid of that. The date the label was completed. Just make sure I have the marking shall comply with the assessment. We can get rid of the label. Factory applied to shall be field or factory applied to service equipment and feeders. Supplied equipment such as switchboard, switcher sockets, and motor control centers are likely to require examination, adjustment, servicing, or maintenance. While energized, the marking shall comply with 110.21b. All right. Be located, right? The marking shall comply with. All right. So here's what I would suggest. Here's what I would suggest. Boom. So we bring this up. Okay. Then me and monitor. Control B. There we go. I would say exception. An arc flash hazard marking shall not be required for service equipment, for that equipment operating at 240 volts nominal or less, and that have an available short circuit current less than 2,000 amps. So I would suggest this, Control X, review, track changes, Control V. That is what I would suggest to round off for next cycle. Yep, and that is shall not operating at 240 volts nominal or less that have an available short. Now this is required for three-phase equipment. Three-phase equipment operating at 240 volts nominal or less and that have an available short circuit current less than 2,000 amps. That would be exception number 1. And then exception number 2, I would have a single phase exception. So that's what I would suggest. And that's what I would think. I can't remember who asked the question. I think that was Kerwin. I think the future of 110.16 is going to be then focused on, okay, when does it not make sense? Because right now it's pretty encompassing. If it's other than a dwelling unit, you're putting a label on it. That is a panel boards. It says feeder supplied equipment such as. So it's not just limited to switchboard, switchgear, enclosed panel boards, industrial control panels, meter circuits, and motor control centers. It's such as. So other equipment like that would need to have an arc flash label. So what's going to happen next is people are going to say, well, is this like that? Do I need to put an arc flash label on it? Would I consider a receptacle like switchboards, switch gears, enclosed panel boards, etc.? That's where that's going to go. All right. And that's just my opinion. Yummy Fudge, thanks for looking that up. You're welcome, sir. I understand that the panel did a reject but see on your PC on the definition of outlet, but the panel language is, oh yeah, Dawn, oh man, that was your public comment? Boy, I tell you what, people were talking. There were a lot of people talking about outlet, the change that they made for outlet. Let's take a look at that language. Element outlet. There it is. So here's what they did. Control Enter. Whoop. Track changes. I got to take track changes off. Control V. Nope. Control Z. I'm going to call up the second draft, and I'm going to first let's take a look at the language, and then we'll take a look at all right, so here's the language. All right. So what the language says is a point on the wiring system, and they removed at which current is taken to supply utilization equipment. They removed that. So let's do this. Control C, Control V. Let's just do what it says. All right, so what it will end up saying is this: a point on the wiring system where the branch circuit conductors are connected to utilization equipment. So it has to go straight to utilization equipment, and a receptacle is not a utilization equipment. So an outlet for a receptacle is not an outlet. So then that puts in question, what is a receptacle outlet? Because they use the term outlet in the defined term for receptacle outlet. Now, Dawn, let's take a look at what the panel said. This revision improves clarity and it also aligns with the definition of a branch circuit. What did you suggest? You suggested a point on the wiring system where the branch circuit conductors are connected to a receptacle, a luminaire, a lamp holder, or utilization equipment. Boy, they gutted that one. I would have, if I was going to make a change to outlet, then I would have probably taken your definition. But I don't know that. Why do we need a change to the definition of an outlet? That's my other thing. Anyway, let's take a look. Dawn Gannier. So Dawn, that's what they did. Willie Snyder says that's going to be funny either way. When certain instructors are called out and it's rejected. When certain instructors are called out and it's rejected. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure. I just wish more focus was put on finding ways to have fewer exceptions and clarify or update requirements instead. There will always be exceptions, but I hope to see fewer over time. Yeah, Yummy Fudge, I would agree with you. But here's what I think. You know what I think? Sometimes putting in an exception and then working it into positive text would be good. And you know what? Let's go back to that. If I was going to rework that, what we talked about earlier, if I was going to rework that text, I would do this. Here's what I would do. If I wanted to not make this, I would say, in other than dwelling units, a permanent arc flash, let me track changes. Light marking shall be filled or factory applied to service equipment and feed. Just servicing exercise them for the following. So I would say the markings shall comply with one specific. That's all parent text. I would. I mean, what you could do, where I was going to go with this to put it in positive text, I would have said 3-phase systems and then be single-phase systems. Right? So I would say 3-phase systems where 3-phase system where the available fault current is greater than or equal to 2,000 amps, comma, in other than dwelling units. A permanent arc flash marking shall be filled or factory applied as follows. And then I would put 1, equipment. Service equipment, feeder supplied equipment, blah, 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 blah. Marking. The marking shall be complied with, blah, 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 blah. Information. The marking shall include the following information. And I would do the same thing in single phase. But I would have a different charging text. So there's ways to do it, but it gets a little bit more wordy. But to your point, it adds a lot of clarity. It could add a lot of clarity. I don't know. It's just an opinion. So David Engelhardt, on a tangent, please express my gratitude to the applicable Eaton staff for sharing the NEC cybersecurity update email. Hey, I will do that. Thank you, David. Thanks for that feedback. That exception you just put together for 110.16, would it not be possible to place that in the scope instead in using positive language? So, yes, and that's the challenge I have is there's probably two different exceptions, one for three-phase and one for single-phase. We're doing single-phase research right now, which will probably be completed by when we get into the 2029 public input phase. So I would separate that into three-phase and single-phase. The information on the marking would be the same, all that jazz, but that's how you would have to lay that out. Something like this. Capitalized and. Willie Snyder, is there language in NEC that the scope only covers 50 volts or more solidly grounded systems? No, because it goes lower than 50 volts. That's good. I mean, we have fiber. We got requirements around fiber, so and we have less than 50 volts. So we have low voltage. We have non-power limited circuits, etc. Don Gannier, my comment was very straightforward. The outlet is where the branch circuit conductors terminate. I think, Don, your public comment, hey, I'm not on the panel. What am I going to do? It is needed because there are a number of people that are saying that there is no outlet for hardwired equipment. I think they did make changes in receptacle outlet and lighting outlet. Let's go take a look. I don't remember seeing let me go to the second draft. Close. Outlet. I got to go to R's for receptacle outlets. Receptacle. There's receptacle outlet. No changes in second draft. Let's go take a look in first draft. 100. Let's look at R for receptacle outlet. Receptacle outlet. They did. So in the first draft, Don, they said an outlet where the branch circuit conductors are connected to one or more receptacles. They did make a change for that. Let's check lighting outlet. Lighting outlet says they didn't make any changes in the first draft. Let's check the second draft. Lighting outlet. Nothing. So lighting outlet did not change. Capitalize the exception for 240 volts and greater than 2,000 amps AFC. Yes, I would agree with you, Steve. I would agree. I think that would be a good exception moving into the next cycle. If that passes, there would be no outlet on cord and plug connected equipment. Yeah, Willie, that's right. That's the challenge. The text. This is what sometimes you got to be careful what you ask for. That's what the panel did, and I would say it's ungood, in my opinion. Boom! I'm gonna hit. Oh, you know what I'm gonna hit. I'm gonna save this little change we made because I'm gonna put this under NEC. I am going to create documents. I'm gonna go to organizations, NFPA, and I'm gonna create an NEC NFPA 70 2029 cycle. Do I have a 2029 folder yet? No, I don't. New folder. 2029 NEC. There we go. And I'm going to make a document called Public Inputs. We're already working on public inputs for NEC 2029. And we don't even know what the second draft is going to entail because all of this is fluid. So anyway, here's another one that I found. You're going to like this one. 517, Article 517, they added a section 517.4 electric service. And it says, in addition to off-site utility-provided electric service, the following sources shall be permitted to supplement the service to supply the entire electrical load. How do you supplement and supply the entire? That doesn't make sense. For the facility based on reliability. It says power production equipment, fuel cells, energy storage, and healthcare microgrids. B is where it's at, man. Listen to this language. Capacity of systems. The systems shall have a capacity and rating to meet the maximum actual demand likely to be produced by the connected load on the system. Demand calculations for sizing the systems shall be based on any of the following. Get this. It says prudent demand factors and historic data. Prudent demand factors and historic data. How do you enforce prudent demand factors? Connected load, feeder calculations, any combination of the above. I just found it funny. Anyway. 210.8, we introduced high frequency HF GFCIs to accommodate high frequencies on the equipment grounding conductors. We also introduced in 210.8F a special purpose GFCI, permission to use the SP GFCI. What else did we do? I need to close this document. We did 110.17. We removed service. We removed and maintenance because maintenance is a part of servicing. What else did we do? All right, I'm going to look at some more thing. Willie Snyder, if that passes. Okay. Brant Butcher, I know this might be really odd, but I'm a first-year apprentice and wanted to know what all the journeymen mean when they tell me to get some. I don't know. I don't know about that one. That's not a good one. All right. So I think we've gotten through a lot of questions. What else? I think we're golden. I think we're golden. There's a lot to come when we start talking about 2026 code changes. We're all fluid right now. This is all subject to change. Nothing is set in stone. We're only in the middle. We just had our meetings. I'm just giving you a sort of a, let's take a look real quick. Close this. Chapter 6. I know. Everybody was wondering about EVs and EV charging equipment. So let's take a look at Chapter 6. Chapter 5, Chapter 6, 625, I think is EV. Yes, 625. Let's take a look. Where is the GFCI requirements? GFCI, let's take a look. Man, this hour goes fast. 625.54. Boy, they really modified this one. Ground fault circuit interrupter, GFCI, or special purpose GFCI. They have cord and plug connected 150 volts or less to ground. Receptacles rated 150 volts or less to ground installed for the connection of electric vehicle charging shall have GFCI for personnel protection. 2, greater than 150 volts to ground. All receptacles rated greater than 150 volts to ground shall have an SP GFCI with a ground fault trip current not exceeding 20 milliamps for personnel protection. Now get it. This 625.54 goes beyond 210.8. Because even if you went to an area that did not have GFCI protection, you would still need to GFCI protect it. B, permanently wired, 150 volts or less to ground, all outlets, rated 150 volts or less to ground, installed for the connection of electric vehicle charging, shall have GFCI for personnel protection. All outlets. 2 is greater than 150 volts to ground. All outlets installed for permanently wired electric vehicle charging shall have a special purpose GFCI with a ground fault trip current not exceeding 20 milliamps for personnel protection. The requirement shall become effective January 1st, 2029. I wonder why they did it for hardwired, but they didn't do that for cord and plug. They didn't put an effective date on receptacles, on the cord and plug connected, but they put it on for permanently wired. Outlets installed, they have 2 exceptions, number 1 to B1 and B2, so that would be permanently wired. Outlets installed to supply DC charging shall not require a special purpose GFCI. And the other exception is outlets installed for electric vehicle bidirectional charging shall not require a special purpose GFCI. All right, so that is the skinny. That's pretty interesting. Very interesting, actually. So we're going to see a lot more on bidirectional, I think, moving into the next cycle. Probably some changes in UL standards coming down the pike. Stay tuned is all I can say. There's a lot going on in 2026. This is going to be one of those code change books from IAEI that you are not going to want to miss. Holy cow, there's a lot of comments here. Where are we at? Duncan is needed because they're... Okay, there we go. That's going to cause some problems. I believe AFC in 2023 and IE, if made in 2026 labels, will have the biggest impact on looking at it, at the often misapplied devices equipment as far as actual code changes. Yep, I would agree. Yep. Sectionalizes. Yep. All right. Past tense of section. It appears that the section for EGCs and cable comes from the product standards that permit the EGC to be in multiple sections. All right. That's going to cause some problems. Thanks for answering my question. Surprised my PI passed. See that? Sometimes, Willie, be careful what you ask for. You just might get it. All right, guys, listen, I'm overdue. It's time to stop. We will see you next week for another IAEI News Live. I hope that you got something out of today's discussion. We covered a little bit, and there's a lot more going on in 2026. Next week, we're going to pick a technical topic and start getting back to reality, not fiction. All right, take care, stay safe, please stay healthy. Thanks for joining in. Take care.